As the Twin Towers stand 110 stories tall, halfway around the world at 12:22 a.m., a mystery Middle East money man named Mustafa Ahmed al-Hassawi moves $6,534 from an account in the Standard Chartered Bank in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. The account belongs to Fayez Ahmed. There were several transactions in the days before September 11th. Another $16,348 is later deposited into al-Hassawi's account.
September 11th was a normal day for me. I got dressed and got on a PATH train from Newport in New Jersey City and took the PATH to the World Trade Center, went upstairs to my office on the 77th floor.
It's about 5 a.m. Mohammed Atta and Abdulaziz Al-Amari awake in room 233 in the Comfort Inn in South Portland, Maine.
I was up early. I usually get up anywhere between 5:30 and 6:30. And that day, because he had his meeting, he got up before I do.
5:33 a.m., Atta and Al-Amari check out of the Comfort Inn. About the same time, 4 other terrorists are getting ready to leave the Newark Airport Marriott, where they rented 2 third-floor rooms for $450 cash. The rooms had a view of the World Trade Center.
Every day before I go to work, I carry the same prayer in my heart. While I'm taking a shower, I would say a prayer. Lord, cover me and all my loved ones under your precious blood, and take us to work in peace and safety and bring us back home.
In the Boston area, 8 more terrorists may have started their day at several hotels, including the Park Inn in Newton, the Days Inn in Brighton, and the Milner Hotel in Boston. 5:40 a.m., Atta and Al-Amari parked their rented Nissan Altima at the Portland International Airport parking lot. The car has Massachusetts license plates. About 3 minutes later, Atta and Al-Amari check in at the U.S. Airways counter and then pass through the metal detectors at the Portland airport. By 6 a.m., they're aboard a Colgan U.S. Air flight bound for Logan International Airport in Boston. 6:30 a.m., President George W. Bush awakes in the Colony Beach and Tennis Resort in Longboat Key, Florida. He goes on a 4-mile run. About the same time, at the Valencia Motel in Laurel, Maryland, the final group of the 19 terrorists gets ready to check out and head to Washington Dulles International Airport. Tom Heidenberger is in his home in Chevy Chase, Maryland. His wife, Michelle, is a flight attendant for American Airlines. Heidenberger himself is a pilot for U.S. Airways.
She had called from the jetway that morning, 6:38 to be exact, and she was on the cell phone, and in typical fashion, she'd do it to me or I'd do it to her. We'd make sure that who's ever home is awake. And she called me and said, "You awake?" I said, "Yep." And the usual checklist of items, make sure you do this, this, and this, and this. And I said, "It's all done." I said, "Have a safe trip, and I'll talk to you when you get out to Los Angeles."
Back in Bayonne, New Jersey, Elaine Duke was just starting her day.
I walk a half a block up to the boulevard to catch a bus. The bus takes me to Journal Square in Jersey City, and I catch the PATH train to the World Trade Center.
How far did you go altogether? 4.5 miles? I think so.
Very solid 7:15, 7:20 a mile pace.
Very impressive. Is that more than usual?
Well, he spurred me on to new heights. I knew he'd come back and brief you all, so.
He held his pace from the moment we left.
Thank you, Stretch.
What do we know about tax cuts?
Not right now.
I took the train into the World Trade Center, and I usually get there about a little before 8 o'clock.
Well, it's pretty much a regular routine. You get up and you drop the baby off at my mother's house, and you take their train regular to come in for 8 o'clock.
We're going to do a training sortie against the F-15s stationed at Langley.
I live in Manhattan. I used to ride the express bus down to the World Trade Center.
I took my car, I drove from Elmont, where we live, to Ozone Park in Queens, where I would park up and take the A train and commute to Lower Manhattan.
Back at Logan Airport, some of the terrorists leave a rented Mitsubishi sedan in the parking lot. It was rented by and registered to Atta. They had rented the vehicle in Springfield days earlier. Inside the car, authorities would find a copy of the Quran and the flight training manual written in Arabic.
I had driven from my residence in White Plains, New York, down to the World Trade Center, parked the car, come up to the office, and it was about 8:20 when I met Mike Nestor in the office.
A couple of us in the office, the Inspector General's office, belonged to the Windows of the World Club, which was a club that you belonged to. You could have breakfast up there every morning. There was a yearly fee. We knew Doris, who was the hostess, and we knew Jan, who was the waiter, and we knew Christine, who was one of the managers there.
It was a normal routine day. I have twin sons, Stephen and Gregory. They're both obviously 25 years old. I was taking them both into Penn Station in Newark that day. Stephen would take a train to Weehawken, and Gregory would take his normal commute into the World Trade Center. The last I saw of the boys, as I waved to them, they waved back, and they headed into Penn Station.
At Logan Airport, shortly before takeoff, Atta is aboard American Airlines Flight 11. Atta uses his cell phone to call Marwan Al-Shehi, who's aboard United Airlines Flight 175. 8 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 departs Logan Airport in Boston for Los Angeles. Atta's luggage stays behind. There was no time to load it onto the plane. Atta is believed to be the pilot. With him are Satam Al-Sukami, Walid M. Al-Sheri, his brother Wael M. Al-Sheri, and Abdulaziz Al-Amari. There are 81 other passengers on board. 8:14 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 departs Logan Airport for Los Angeles. Marwan Al-Shehi, Fayez Ahmed, Ahmed Al-Ghamdi, Hamza Al-Ghamdi, and Mohand Al-Sheri are the terrorists. Al-Shehi may be the pilot. There are 56 other passengers on board. 8:15 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 changes its scheduled route. 8:21 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 departs Dulles Airport for Los Angeles. Khalid Al-Madar, Majed Moked, Nawaf Al-Hazmi, Salem Al-Hazmi, and Hani Hanjour are the terrorists. Hanjour may be the pilot. There are 58 other passengers on board. Michelle Heidenberger is one of the flight attendants. Aboard American Airlines Flight 11, flight attendant Madeline Sweeney calls Flight Services Manager Michael Woodward at Logan Airport. She reports the plane has been hijacked. She says it's Middle Eastern men. She reports 2 flight attendants have been stabbed. She calmly continues, a hijacker also cut the throat of a business class passenger and he appears to be dead. Sweeney reports that the hijackers have stormed the cockpit. 8:24 a.m. Also aboard Flight 11, the voice of a hijacker is heard by air traffic controllers. We have some planes. Just stay quiet and you will be okay. We are returning to the airport. Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make moves, you'll endanger yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet. At 8:33 a.m., the voice of a hijacker is heard again on Flight 11. Nobody move, please. We are going back to the airport. Don't try to make any stupid moves. 8:40 a.m., the Federal Aviation Administration notifies the North American Aerospace Defense Command that American Airlines Flight 11 may have been hijacked.
Along the way, when we could not establish communications with American 11, our controllers asked the pilot of United 175, who was in the vicinity, if he could get visual contact with that aircraft to verify the altitude, because when we lose transponder targets, we also lose altitude information on the aircraft. The United aircraft did sight the airplane, gave us an approximate altitude report of 29,000 feet, which was the aircraft's assigned altitude at that time.
I had just sent my sister an email right around 8:40, 8:41 in the morning. I was looking forward to starting yoga. We were both going to start a yoga class that evening.
8:41 a.m. United Airlines Flight 93 departs Newark Airport for San Francisco. Saeed Al-Ghamdi, Ahmad Ibrahim Al-Haznawi, Ahmed Al-Nami, and Ziad Samir Jara are the terrorists. There are 38 other passengers on board.
أن هناك عندهم عملية استشهاد وطلب منهم أن يأخذوا من في أمريكا وأوروبا بعض الدول عدة دول وما فتحوا إلا هناك قبل هؤلاء لا يعرفون هناك نسب الطيار ماشي بسرعة وندخل في مبنى العملية هي الدخول في مبنى.
There was a woman there who was a regular, Elizabeth Thompson, and also the new Silverstein Properties representative who was in charge of the building. Richard and I left first, and we walked to the elevator, and we heard them coming down a hall, so we held the elevator for them. And they got in the elevator with us, and we went down to the 78th floor, got off the elevator, and they proceeded down to the lobby, and we took the escalator to the 77th floor. And that was the last elevator to leave Windows of the World.
8:46 a.m., 2 F-15s are scrambled at Otis Air National Guard Base in Falmouth, Massachusetts. 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 screams toward Lower Manhattan.
We get off the elevator on the 78th floor. The time it takes us to walk down the hall, get on the escalator, go down one floor. We open the door to the office.
I had just finished working on a difficult billing problem for one of our clients, and I had gotten up from behind my desk and I was about to walk around the desk.
The reception area had called to say there were boxes being delivered for my boss.
Flight attendant Madeline Sweeney reports from Flight 11 as it moves toward the North Tower. She says, quote, "I see water and buildings. Oh my God, oh my God."
And bam, the plane hit. It was quite a blast. It was a boom. It could have been a bomb.
The plane hit, and I had to grab onto the partition to keep myself from being knocked over.
The plane hit, and the next thing I knew, I was on my knees behind my desk. What it felt like was the most violent shaking I've ever felt in my life.
I was in the middle of the corridor with the messenger who had the 8 boxes that were on the dolly or a big cart. And it was at that moment I thought the boxes had a bomb in them. And all of a sudden I was engulfed in fire.
But the building actually rocked from side to side to side. Then it went how a bottle rights itself and actually stopped.
I thought the building was going to go over, and we were going with it.
It didn't just move inches. It just didn't sway gently. I mean, this was a horror. When I looked out in the office and I saw an entire row of file cabinet drawers, every one of them was open.
There was a loud boom, and the lights in my room buzzed a bit, so I looked up at them, and my peripheral vision caught behind me this huge glowing fireball, and I spun around in my desk and looked out the west wall of the South Tower, and the entire airspace outside my window was just filled with flame.
I turned looking towards Jersey City, and there I saw from where we were sitting fireballs coming down.
One of our crew chiefs, Jay Johnson, comes upstairs and says, hey, an airplane just flew into the World Trade Center.
8:47 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175 changes its route.
It wasn't more than probably 2 minutes later that we got put on battle stations. Battle stations is just get out to the airplanes, get strapped in, basically do everything but start the engine.
We opened the door to go out to see, the hallway. The whole hallway has collapsed, so our exit is blocked. We can't get down the stairs.
One of the gentlemen in the office said, you can't go down the staircases on this side of the building, they're blocked. So that meant we had to go down what I think they referred to as staircase A.
Within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, there must be 50 to 75 people from other floors that couldn't get out from 78 and 79. They got down to 77. So now we have a room full of people.
My watch had snapped right off my wrist, and I felt like I was in this fire and I couldn't get out.
Cameraman John Fine came dashing into the room to grab his equipment at a frantic pace, which normally you don't see even on so-called breaking stories. He was in such a hurry to get everything and grab it that I said, something's going on. And I said, hey, John, what's happening? What's going on? And he said, a plane hit the Trade Center.
I saw some of the staff that were standing there. And as I got closer to them, I'm screaming, I'm hurt, help me. I'm hurt, help me, help me.
I saw Elaine, the woman that we helped down. I saw her and I didn't recognize her. She was totally black burnt. Her hair was just swinged to her skull. And when I realized who that person was, I just started crying and saying, "Oh my God."
My jacket was totally gone. Most of my skirt was gone. So I had rushed over to my workstation and I grabbed a sweater and had tied it around my waist. And one of the men from the office started patting my head because I still had, I guess, fire on me, and another woman patted my clothing.
My first thought was my good buddy Steve was up there, who I worked with for many years, because I was a transmitter man myself for a long time. I called his extension right away, not knowing if the phones would even be working, but sure enough, he picked up the phone and we started to talk. He said, "Transmitter," and I said, "Steve, are you all right?" And he said, "Something happened," he said, and I said, "Yes." I says, "A plane has hit the building." I said, "See if you can get to the roof."
I think my adrenaline was on super high, and I knew I was hurt because when I was sitting I did sit down in the office and I looked down and I saw my skin melting, right going down my leg.
8:52 a.m., the two F-15s that were scrambled 6 minutes earlier at Otis Air National Guard Base in Massachusetts are airborne.
On my way down one flight, I saw Elaine. She was by herself at this point. I saw her walking, her hand extended. She couldn't put them close to her body, and the sweater just tied around her. And I looked around and I saw her and I said, "I got you, Elaine. I'm not gonna let you go."
8:56 a.m. American Airlines Flight 77's transponder is turned off. Meanwhile, aboard United Airlines Flight 93, Captain Jason Dahl and co-pilot Leroy Homer receive a text message sent by a flight dispatcher in Chicago, warning that there had been a cockpit intrusion on another United flight.
I had taken a walk to the east side of our building and gone up against the north windows, where some people were watching, very sadly, watching people jump from the North Tower.
I was doing what I do every day when I'm not working. Read the newspaper, have a cup of coffee. I mean, it's early. I mean, it was just before 9 o'clock. And I'm reading the paper, and the neighbor calls out across the backyard or over the driveway and says, "Turn the TV on."
Approximately 9 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 changes course.
We were advised that Indianapolis Center, which is west of here, had lost all contact with American Flight 77. 9:01, Newark Tower personnel acquire visually United 175 on its approach to the World Trade Center.
But once I heard that it was a particular American Airlines flight, and Michelle had just left that morning going out to Los Angeles, I just didn't feel right. So I made a phone call to a friend of mine with American Airlines, and I was put through right away, and his first words were, "There's something going on with Michelle's flight. We really don't know what it is."
9 o'clock we left. We left at 9 o'clock in a button.
You take one step and you'd have to wait because it was so crowded in the stairwell. You took one step and then you waited. And then it moved a little and you took one step and you waited, and one step and you waited.
The memories of the survivors, though, are bound to differ.
There were people, but people were moving very well, very calm, very quickly. The staircases were very well lit. You had no trouble seeing.
Over the speaker came the voice we were quite used to hearing over the years. Quote, "Building 2 is secure. There is no need to evacuate Building 2. If you're in the midst of evacuation, you may return to your floor by using the re-entry doors and the elevators." Repeat, and the announcement was made again. 5 minutes later, I was talking to two people, Bobby Call and Kevin York, who had indeed returned to our floor because of that announcement.
We went downstairs. We were about to go through the turnstile. The security guard stopped us. "Where you guys are going?" "Well, I saw fireballs coming down and I'm going home." "No, your building is secured. It is safe to stay in your building. Go back to your office." But I'm looking at the other guys who are there waiting for the elevator now to go back up, and they're giving me this strange look. "Stan, you going to hurry and come in? We're going to hold this elevator door for you." So in my heart, I'm debating, should I go back up? Should I stay? Should I wait? What to do? I decided to go back in. So we made our way back in the elevator back to the 78th floor.
Two F-15s are flying at supersonic speed towards United Airlines Flight 175. They're 71 miles and 8 minutes away from the Boeing 767, which is heading towards Lower Manhattan.
A young lady from Chicago is on the phone, and she's asking, Stan, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Stan, are you watching the news? Are you seeing what is going on? And I'm like, I'm okay. Now, why all these people calling me? I don't have a clue. Nobody told me a plane crashed in the building. And for no apparent reason, while on the phone with this young lady from Chicago, I happened to raise my head looking towards Statue of Liberty. And what I saw is a giant airplane bearing down on me, eye level, eye contact. I dropped the phone, screamed, and I said, Lord, you take over, I can't do this. I don't know why I said this. It was probably just a prayer I had carried in my heart all the while. And I dove under my desk.
And we were just talking about it, the fact that he had come back to the floor when boom, boom, there was a double explosion like that, or double noise.
This plane with the most thundering sound just crashed into the building, and I'm hiding under my desk, screaming in a fetal position, Lord, help me, please, somebody, anybody, help me. I don't want to die. I have to go home to my wife and my 2 children.
The room instantly fell apart. The ceiling fell from above, the ceiling tiles, speakers and cables, some air conditioning ducts sort of swung out of the ceiling. Drywall was ripped and door frames fell out of the walls. It was instant mess, and a great white dust was everywhere, like construction dust. The building just swayed a long way to the Hudson River, and it just went and went and went. For forever, it seemed. It felt like yards. Now, I don't know how far it swayed, but I thought we were going over.
When the second tower was hit by the second plane, and then we realized, of course, that it was terrorists. So I called him right back, and I said, Steve, it has to be terrorists. I said, the other tower just got hit. So I said, try and get to the roof. And he says, well, it's hot. It's hot up here in the hallway. I can't leave the room. It's too hot. And then he says, get me out of here, send help. And send help was the last 2 words I heard from him.
9:05 a.m., White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card whispers the news to Bush about the second plane as Bush speaks with the 6th graders.
We were able to move fairly quickly to the 81st floor, a landing. And at that time, we came upon a very heavy-set woman who was coming up from the 80th floor with her hands in front of her saying, stop, stop. You can't go down. We've just come off a floor in flames. We must go above the smoke and the flames. You can't go down. She was just insistent. And our group stopped, and we got into a debate. And with my flashlight, I just shone it in the eyes of whoever was speaking at that time.
I arrived in Manhattan just before 9 o'clock at our company headquarters building in Uptown here. About 10 to 15 minutes later, I received a page from my wife that I returned, and she had indicated or asked me whether or not I had heard. I said, heard of what?
I was driving into the city, so I was in the Lincoln Tunnel. I had music on, my cell phone rang. It was one of my independent reps, so I turned down the music. When I got off the phone and turned the music back on, they had said, that 2 planes had hit the World Trade, and I thought, that's a funny thing to be joking about. You don't joke about something like that, so I changed it to like a regular news station.
She said the plane had struck the World Trade Center. But she said Greg was all right. I was in touch with Greg, and he's going to leave the building. Greg was in the South Tower, 93rd floor.
I heard a banging, a thumping, and a voice calling in the darkness on the 81st floor.
I started to crawl because somebody on the other end of the floor heard my screaming. And this person had a flashlight. And that was the only light I saw.
I began to remove debris, and he was doing his best from the other side, and there was this one obstacle in front of us. And I finally, it was immovable. And I finally said to this person, I said, you must jump. It's the only way out.
And I'm telling him I can't jump, I don't have the energy.
You must jump, I'll grab you. And so he jumped, and I reached in, but I couldn't grab him. And I said, you must do this.
And I started to punch this wall with everything that I got until my fist went through. And I pushed my head closer on. And I started waving my fist. He said, I see a hand. I said, when you see my head, just yank me through. Brian said, jump, and I'm going to grab you. So I jumped.
And somehow I locked onto something.
Brian just grabbed me under the arm and around the neck like a headlock. And he just yanked me right through that wall. And with an impact, I fell on top of him, on top of the rubble. I was asking him, what is your name? He said, Brian Clark.
And then he said, I'm Stanley.
He said, let me see your hand. And Brian had a gash in his left hand. And Brian took my right hand that had ballooned, and he took his left hand, and he rubbed the two palms together. And Brian said, as of today, you're my blood brother.
It's about this time, 40 minutes into the flight of United Airlines 93, that the hijackers stand up, put on red bandanas, begin their attack on passengers, and head for the cockpit. Ziad Jarrah speaks to passengers, probably unaware air traffic controllers can hear him.
Hi, the captain. I would like to order to remain seated. We are all aboard and are going to back to the airport. And we have our demand, so please remain quiet.
Our operations officer came in and said, hey, I just got a call from Sector. They want us to launch all pilots, all planes.
9:24 a.m., 3 F-16s are scrambled at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia. Aboard United Flight 93, several of the passengers start planning to fight back against the hijackers. Probably many passengers take part in what becomes a death struggle. Among the passengers who fight for control of the plane are Todd Beamer, Mark Bingham, Jeremy Glick, and Thomas Burnett. They're also among many passengers who make calls from the plane.
Tom told me that his plane was hijacked. I told him what happened at the World Trade Center, and he calmly assessed the situation and then acted. He told me, I'm putting a plan together, and there's a group of us who's going to take back the airplane. He later said, it's up to us.
9:26 a.m., the FAA stops all departures nationwide.
What I next did was try to reach Greg on his landline. I did not have any success on his landline. I tried on his cell phone and reached him. I said, Greg, what's going on? Greg said that the room was filling up with smoke, and he asked me to contact someone to let them know that he and 20 other people were on the northeast corner of the 93rd floor. I could not understand what was going on because my understanding was a plane had struck the other tower.
There were people actually trying to tell jokes, you know, to keep other people's spirits up. I remember we had one guy, I don't know what floor it was on, it must have been in the 50s or so, preaching the word of God. I said something to him to the effect of, I'll talk to God after I'm out of here, not before.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
As the president leaves the Sarasota school, the 3 F-16s scrambled from Langley Air Force Base in Virginia are now airborne.
And I'm thinking we're going up to New York. because the heading they initially gave us was a 010 heading from our clearance limit point, and that basically takes us up the coast, up to New York.
9:32, a controller at Washington Dulles Tower observed an unknown target, which subsequently proved to be American Flight 77. This primary target was proceeding eastbound at a rapid speed and extremely low.
We continued heading up towards New York, or what I assumed was New York, up the coast, and they gave us a new coordinate. I typed that into our computer, and it pointed right over towards D.C.
The women got upset, and I guess other people got upset as we came down with Elaine because of what she looked like, but basically everybody was very cooperative and calm. You know, there wasn't really a panic or hysteria in the stairwells.
They were clearing out of the way. Women were upset. They were just passing out when they saw her, because they couldn't, first I guess they don't recognize who she was. Jerry was the mouthpiece, actually. He was yelling, "Get out of the way, we have somebody who needs medical attention."
It probably was about 90 degrees in that staircase after a while. At least that's what I remember of it feeling like.
And by the time we get down below the 30th floor, the water was cascading down the stairs, kind of like Niagara Falls. And that's when we noticed the firemen started coming up. It was like between 30 and 40. And I felt sorry for the fireman because I'll never forget seeing the first fella. He had his fire helmet on, his heavy raincoat. He was carrying an axe. He had a backpack on. He had his heavy boots and whatnot, and he was covered in sweat and exhaustion.
If anybody needed assistance, they were right there. They stopped myself and a couple of other people and handed us wet towels.
And one of the fellows was a young fella coming up, and he had a Proby hat on. His name was Tierney, just as Mize. I saw him going around, and I saw the name Tierney going up.
I started developing a difficulty in walking down the stairs, so it slowed myself up and one or two other people that stayed with me.
9:36 a.m. United Airlines Flight 93 changes its course.
And while we were making the trip down, the people that were with me and the other people from my floor were right behind us. They were saying, "Elaine, we're on the 68th floor. We're down on the 50th floor."
Yeah, that's what we were telling her. "Come on, Elaine, we only got, a couple more flights, 10 more minutes." We didn't want her to know that we had another 30, 40 flights to go.
When he asked me to contact someone, my thought was I have to contact the fire department. So what I did was turn over the phone that I was on to one of my coworkers. I immediately went to another phone, dialed 911. The fireman said to me, "Tell them to immediately get on the floor, as close to the floor as possible. Don't talk. And if possible, if they're near water, to soak their clothes or anything and try to keep the smoke out of the room that they were in."
Wallace Miller is with his father, who preceded him as Somerset County coroner.
And I can remember saying to my dad, we're looking at each other, "Boy, how would you like to be coroner in New York right now?" We didn't realize what was going to happen after that.
The three F-16s scrambled from Langley Air Force Base in Virginia are 105 miles and 8 minutes away and flying at supersonic speed towards American Airlines Flight 77. 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon.
We heard the first collision impact noise, which was tremendous.
At his home in Chevy Chase, Tom Heidenberger continued to watch the news, knowing his wife Michelle was aboard American Airlines Flight 77. He tried to reach his friend at American.
I called again and got through to him, and he said there's definitely an event with Michelle's flight. And I just, in essence, asked him, "How's it look?" And his words were not good. At that point in time, I went ahead and made arrangements to get the children home.
Well, I've seen films where you see a bombing and an orange glow will go up and then black smoke following it. That's exactly what it was like. An orange glow ball came through the ceiling area of where we were. And immediately as that passed through, all the lights and the furniture started to fall over.
I knew my husband was at a meeting at the World Trade, but his meeting was supposed to be over at 8:30. So again, I was thinking everything's fine. And I had been trying him this whole time, but I couldn't get a signal.
Approximately 9:40 a.m., Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta orders the FAA to bring down all 4,546 planes that were in the air at that hour.
When you hear hear calls on the radio that you've never heard before. And these were calls made by the air traffic controllers warning other airplanes not to come into Washington airspace. And they said, Washington airspace is closed. If you come in here, you will be shot down. You know, that's something you don't hear every day. And again, we didn't have any authority to shoot anybody down, but when you hear them saying it, you know someone's thinking it.
I got back on the phone with my son, and he immediately indicated to me that the situation was getting worse. He said that the smoke was thickening. It was getting harder and harder to breathe. He asked whether or not I could call the fire department again and ask whether or not they could break a window. I was then back into the room talking with Greg and said, Greg, we can't give instructions. They could not give instructions like that. So I told him, hang on, buddy, you know, help is on the way.
And it's funny how you can work in a place or live in a place for years and not notice something. And I never really noticed the incredible view that we have of the World Trade, or had of the World Trade, from that location. And I looked up when I got to that corner, and you could see the buildings, and that's when you realize how bad it was. And I tried him again, and I got through to his cell phone, but it was just his voicemail, and I just said, you know, Thomas, call me. And I just kept trying him, and I tried Brady's Tavern, which is where he was the last time this happened in '93.
Now, the sprinkler system came on in about, I think, 2 to 3 minutes after the impact, and that helped a great deal, not only for breathing, but making sure that we didn't catch on fire ourselves. As I was crawling out, I crawled over some sharp pieces as well as pieces that were falling from the ceiling. So my knees were badly burned. My arm was burned as well, and my hand.
Well, we came out of the stairwell, which opened out into the core area of the lobby. And that's where all the marble was on the walls and was all cracked, and certain areas would fallen.
It was just like a fountain of water pouring down right over the escalator, the turnstile where we had to go through. And I just said to myself, I couldn't let this water beat on her burned body. So I pushed her out of the way, and I took that fall, the water coming down. I'm terrified of water. But I had to do it. And 2 officers took her, and she turned around and she asked me if I was coming with her. And I said yes. We took her across the street in front of the Millennium, where a priest came.
And he asked if he could give me the last rites, and I said, yes, please do.
And I went to the hospital with her.
I tried to catch up to them going to 4 World Trade Center, but by the time I got to that location, they were already gone. And someone, I don't know who, said to me, you got to go out through Building 5, and that's when I went up the escalator with everyone else and out through Borders Books. And once I got out onto the street, I ran into other Port Authority employees, and we proceeded to start walking north.
I remember they put me, I guess, on the bed in the emergency ward, and there were a lot of people around me, and I felt them taking my rings off, which I thought I felt taking the rings off, but I found out later they actually had to cut my rings off because my hands and fingers were so swollen already at this time. And a doctor said to me, I'm gonna give you a shot and you're gonna fall asleep. I was glad that I was gonna be able to fall asleep because I didn't want to feel what was happening to me.
During the morning, AWACS radar and surveillance planes are set up along the east and west coasts.
9:44. Cleveland Center contacts Pittsburgh Tower, once again, Eastern Region facility, to tell them that United Flight 93 has turned around and is now heading back towards Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh controllers at this point in time were aware of the fact that 3 aircraft had already crashed. They did not know what the intentions of United Flight 93 were.
9:55 a.m., Air Force One departs Sarasota Bradenton International Airport.
We went all the way down. We passed one person, and that one person was Jose Marrero. He was carrying a walkie-talkie, and I said to him, this was about the 68th floor that we passed him, I said, Jose, where are you going? And he said, I can hear Dave Vera up above. He said, he's got the walkie-talkie and he's helping people and he needs help. I'm going up to help him. And I said something like, well Dave's a big boy. come with us. He said, no, I can help him. I said, well, I'm getting this fellow from Fuji Bank out because Stanley was cut and bruised. And he said, oh, I'll be all right. And Jose disappeared upward, and I don't know how far Jose got or what he saw, but that was the last I saw of him.
I was in a state of trying to understand what was going on because I still don't understand that a plane has struck the second tower. He mentioned to one of my coworkers that he was going down, was getting out, and was told to go up because the outside area was not secure. He said to one of my coworkers, I should not have listened. I shouldn't have listened. Now look where I am.
We came out at the half-price ticket booth and we saw nobody. We went to the windows and we looked at the plaza level and we stared at what I've described as a moonscape, an archaeological find. It had been abandoned for 100 years.
And we just ran towards Liberty Street. It looked like a ticket-day parade with all the confetti coming down. That was broken glass. Not one piece touched us.
What he did tell my coworkers, though, was that he and what now was 30 other people, so there were more people that were coming into this area, were sitting closely together.
And I told Brian, this is God's doing. I'm going to Trinity Church. And Brian says, I'm coming with you.
And we walked down Greenwich Street a little further and got out the back of Trinity Church.
We bumped into a priest. And I pointed out Brian to this man and I said, this man is my guardian angel, and my Lord sent him to save me.
And I said, Stanley, you may think I saved your life, and perhaps I did, but I think you saved my life. You pulled me out of that debate as to whether to go up or go down. And of course, I didn't know what was about to happen. And Stanley and the minister had a prayer, and he said, you know, the church is open if you'd like to go in. And Stanley and I looked at each other, and wide-eyed, we nodded, yeah, let's do that.
The next thing I knew, I'm holding on to the fence of Trinity Church, Brian and I. And I turned and I looked at Brian, and I said, this building is going now.
And I said, there's no way, that's a steel structure, that's just draperies and carpets and furniture burning. And I didn't finish my sentence when boom, boom, we could hear some explosions and the tower started down.
He mentioned to my coworkers that to pass the information to me that he loved me. He said that he wanted to talk to his mother, and unfortunately we couldn't make that connection. And he also wanted to pass along the words to his girlfriend and his brother that he loved them as well. The last words that one of my coworkers heard was Greg saying that the ceiling's caving in, the ceiling's caving in.
I got to around the 6th floor when all of a sudden the building started to shake again, and I could hear the floors collapsing above me, and the lights went out, and the soot started coming up from the lower stairwells.
The most awful sound I've ever heard in my life, because the only thing I can akin it to is a fleet of 15 or 20 garbage trucks, all rolling at the same time. I mean, it was an ungodly sound.
And that's when I thought it was the end. And it lasted about 15 seconds. I remember reaching out to one of the fellows in front of me, Lou Trombaco, another staff member here, and grabbing his elbow just to be touching another human being at the end.
In San Rafael, California, Jack Grancolis just got up. It's 7:05 on the West Coast. His wife, Lauren, is scheduled to fly home from New Jersey.
I turned on the television to start my day, get ready, and with the news in the background, and sat up in bed and noticed what was going on, and not really believing what I was seeing or understanding it.
Like most people in the world, Fred Fiumano has been watching the morning's events on television. He's in his Queens auto repair shop when his friend Marion Britton calls during the last moments of Flight 93.
And she said the plane was hijacked. So I said, what do you mean hijacked? Let me tell you, I don't understand. I said, two planes crashed into the World Trade Center. She told me she already knew about that the planes did crash. So she said, they hijacked this plane and we're gonna crash. I said, they're taking you for a joyride. Don't worry about it, you ain't gonna crash. She told me that they hijacked the plane and they slit 2 passengers' throats. She didn't tell me who they cut their throats. She said they killed 2 people on the plane already. She said, we're going to crash now, we're going down. She kept on saying it over and over. And next thing I heard everybody yelling and screaming on the plane. A lot of noise, I don't know, a lot of people or whatever. yelling and screaming, and then within a couple of seconds or whatever it was, everything was silent. She said, "We're going to crash now," and then everything went dead.
10:06 a.m. United Airlines Flight 93 crashes in Stony Creek Township, Pennsylvania.
She gave me a phone number, just in case we get disconnected. I said, "Give me your number, I'll call you right back." She gave me a number, and when everything went dead, I tried calling back, and the line was just like dead.
So I just did what I do for any other coroner's case. I just loaded up my equipment and drove out there, and sure enough, there was a jet. But it didn't look like a jet. It just looked like a lot of debris strewn all over the place. It was just pieces of aircraft, probably no bigger than that. Most of the pieces of airplane I saw were about that big. Later on, of course, they recovered some bigger things out of this crater. They wound up finding stuff as deep as, I think, 50 feet.
This letter and identical copies are found at the Pennsylvania crash site, in Atta's luggage at Logan Airport, and at Dulles Airport in a 1988 Toyota Corolla registered to Al-Hazmi. The letter contains prayers and then reads in part, "Purify your soul from all unclean things. Completely forget something called this world. The time for play is over and the serious time is upon us. Check all your items, your bag, your clothes, knives, your will, your passport, all your papers." It then continues, "Make sure no one is following you. Pledge allegiance to death and renew the intention. Know the plan from all aspects. Expect a reaction or resistance from the enemy."
Someone shouted out, the tower collapsed, it's gone. And I said, "What tower?" And they said, we don't know what tower, but one of the towers is gone. At that point in time, I just lost it. I didn't know what was happening from square one, and now it seemed my world had just collapsed. I called home, and my urge was to get home. I felt that the worst had happened.
I got a call about 20 minutes later from her sister Vaughn, and Lauren had been staying at Vaughn's house. She'd been back in New Jersey for her grandmother's funeral. After realizing that all flights were grounded after 9 o'clock, I felt comfortable knowing that Lauren would be going back to Vaughn's. However, Vaughn said that she got a message from Lauren saying that she'd caught the earlier flight, the 8 a.m. flight, and that we weren't sure where it was.
Somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Thomas is on the phone." So my first, thing was a sense of relief, like he's on the phone, so he's okay. He's got to be at the bar, or he's, at the Mercantile Exchange or someplace. And he says, "This looks really, really bad. This doesn't look good." And he just kept saying, "This just doesn't look good. This doesn't look good." And I got upset with him. I said, "Thomas, just tell me yes or no. Are you okay?" And that's when he said, "We're in a room on the 92nd floor that we can't get out of." When I asked my husband, "Who are you with?" he named 3 of our friends, Brendan Dolan, Joey Holland, and Elkin Ewing. One of them is normally up there. That's Brendan Dolan. That's where his office is based. The other guys work on the Mercantile Exchange, so they were just there for this meeting.
There were 2 messages from Lauren, and the first one was to tell me that she was on the earlier flight. She was happy about that and was going to see me at a certain time. The second message was her from the flight, calling to say that there was just a little problem, telling me that she loved me, reminding me to remember how much she loved me, that she was fine and comfortable for now, pausing a moment or two to say, I'll, but stopping herself from making any false promise like I'll call you back, and then expressing her love again to me and her family, and then saying goodbye. That's when it really kind of hit me. She was pregnant at the time, and it would have been our first child.
When I got down to the mezzanine level, we were walking along the big glass, the long glass walls, and a woman behind me collapsed. And she said, "I can't take another step."
And that's when I realized that my legs just weren't going to work any longer.
I couldn't lift my legs up high enough to get over the debris. So what happened was I would have to place her on the debris, climb up the debris, pick her up, put her on the other side of the debris, carry her to the next piece of debris, and I did that across the whole plaza until I got to the escalators that take you down to Vesey Street, in which time there was another gentleman came behind me and said, "Let me help you."
So he and another fellow grabbed me, one under each arm and leg, and literally carried me down the stairs and out onto Church Street.
I could hear the guys in the background talking. I heard one woman crying, another woman was just talking. Maybe it was to her, to this other woman. One of the boys said, let's just knock down this goddamn wall. You know, he said, I love you, take care of Caitlin. And so for him, it was a goodbye call. It wasn't for me, but for him it was.
I stepped out onto the concourse level. It looked like a war zone, debris and some body parts and things. My sense was just keep moving and just keep going, which I did. And I looked at my watch again, 10:25.
The group that I was with, there was about 7 of us, all went out a window, second floor window. If we hadn't been able to get out the windows, which are blast resistant and normally shouldn't have been able to be broken, was compromised by the force of the fireball, so we were able to get out that window.
My son Thomas, he picked up and asked me if that was his mother, and or something to the effect, please, Dad, tell me that Mom wasn't in New York. And I said, no, she wasn't in New York. And I said, come on in. And then we essentially had a heart-to-heart talk, if you want to call it a heart-to-heart talk. And I explained to him what I knew, that the airplane had crashed, had been hijacked and crashed into the Pentagon. With regard to my daughter, it was pretty much the same thing, but she came about an hour to an hour and a half later.
Word came that there was another plane heading for D.C., and there was concern that they may be coming back to hit the Pentagon again. So everybody was told to evacuate. And so the nurse started pushing my wheelchair out.
You know, and again, I said to him, I said, Thomas, you're gonna get out of there. You guys, you just don't lose your cool. And that's when he said, Ileana, you don't understand. There are people on the floors jumping. And for me, that was just so horrible.
I was getting oxygen from an EMT truck on Park Lane and Church when we heard a couple of policemen running and screaming, get out of here, the other one is coming down. And I looked at the policeman and I said to him, what are you talking about? And he said to me, the North Tower is starting to fall. And at that point, I realized still had no idea what had happened, but then I realized what all this dirt was that I was walking through.
Again, you know, he said, take care of Caitlin, who's our 4-year-old. And the last thing he said was, I got to get down on the floor, and that's when I lost the connection.
I hope I live. It's coming down on me. Here it comes. I'm getting behind a car.
A construction worker grabbed me and rushed me across the street and got me into a building seconds before the cloud hit.
I saw dust. I saw dust. I could have broke the world's record that time for the 100-yard dash.
People just don't know what to do.
Hi, Jim, we have a report now of fire on the Washington Mall.
We're frozen. Both buildings gone, man. That's it. We have a lot of dead American people up here, and we need answers.
6th Avenue! Jeff! 6th Avenue!
Well, no, I'm in Tower 1. I help people go all the way down the tower, down the steps. We're carrying a woman down in a wheelchair.
No empty buses.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I'm loading everybody up here.
No trucks.
Okay.
No vans.
Okay.
Prayers and thoughts go out to all the people there.
Now they're saying that everything is shut down. You can't get in or out of the city. I've got a 4-year-old in preschool that I had to, what do I do with her? How do I get her out of school?
There was a conference in town during this attack of the chaplains from around the Army. So the chaplains kind of spilled out into this triage center. So every place you saw a chaplain kind of sitting and praying and holding hands.
I was in shock. I just paced. The second worst part of the day was having to tell her parents who had called from the road, and they had no idea of what had happened.
Vice President Cheney recommends to the president that he not head back to Washington. They think Air Force One was the next target. The president's plane changes course for Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana.
First, we picked up my mother on the way because she's in the city. Got to the George Washington Bridge. It was open, then it was closed. It was open, so when we got to it was closed. So we went through Connecticut and just looped back around into New Jersey that way.
I was in a state of shock. It's a feeling I'll never forget because I was in my own little shell. I kept looking at people. People were looking horrified. People just wanted to get out of the city. You could just sense it by the looks on their faces. And here, I also wanted to get out of the city, but I heard my son die on the phone. And I just wanted to run. And in all honesty, if I could have swam, I would have swam across the Hudson to get home.
About an hour and a half later, there were 2 people in the building, and we were all sitting there just trying to stay calm, and the FBI came in and told them that they had to leave because they were evacuating Lower Manhattan. So we all got up and slowly but surely walked north. I got to Houston Street, and I was able to get on a bus from there to Columbus Circle. And then from Columbus Circle, I walked home.
I finally walked to the Holland Tunnel and identified myself to the Port Authority police officer there, and he drove me through the tunnel. And I said, just let me out here. And then I walked from the tunnel to my house.
I walked from the World Trade Center location up to 42nd Street to Metro North, Grand Central Terminal. That took hours because I have arthritis, so I move very slowly, but I kept moving. I'll never forget when I got to Grand Central Terminal, there was an announcement, and I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. It was, attention passengers, the ticket offices are closed, please buy your ticket on the train. And I thought that was very strange, but I got on the train anyhow.
That was a real eye-opening after we landed. Was, I called my wife and let her know I'm okay. And, she said that my folks had called numerous times, said she got over 70 calls just wondering if I was okay. And that kind of makes you think.
It's noontime, September 11th, 2001. The nation feels like it's under siege. No one knows how many more attacks may be coming. The world has practically come to a stop. The Pentagon is on fire. What used to be an airplane is scattered in small pieces across a Pennsylvania strip mine, and the Twin Towers have collapsed.
1,000 years, 1,000 more, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 doors to eternity. I may have lived 1,000 lives, 1,000 times, an endless journey, stairway climbs to a tower of souls. For chasing another 1,000 years, 1,000 wars, the towers rise to numberless floors in space. I could shed another 1,000,000 tears, 1,000,000 breaths, 1,000,000 names, but only one truth to face. A 1,000,000 roads and